Okay, the next thing I wanted to go over was loops and kind of iterative statements in general. So whenever you do a loop, you want to repeat the same steps over and over for a set number of times. I mean, that's kind of the basic idea of a loop. You can do it infinite number of times. Normally that's by accident. Sometimes it's on purpose, like that's how web servers work. They just continuously search for incoming incoming request. So we're just going to make a loop that iterates like 5 times. And then we'll use loops in other programs to do some other stuff, like iterate through different elements of a list, an array, and all that stuff. So we're just going to start off with a while loop, which is, I think, the simplest one. You know, that's my opinion. Other people will differ. And so you type while, and then you have an open set of parentheses after the word while, and then your curly braces. Any code you want to execute in the loop will go in between the curly braces. Very similar to the if statement. And in the parentheses here, you want to have an expression that evaluates the true. While some expression is true, do this stuff. So that's kind of how a while loop is structured. So while my first var is equal to 5, and we'll just have to enter 5 in order for this to work. We'll see out a message that says we entered 5. Then it's going to keep going, because once it does this line of code, it goes here, it goes to this next line, goes back up and does this evaluation again and says, okay, is my first var still equal to 5? And we didn't do anything to it inside the loop, so now it's going to infinitely say we entered 5. And we can see that by compiling our program and then running it. And we're going to enter 5 and watch it spew out a bunch of text there. Like, there it goes. And you hit Control C to break that infinite loop that you started. So now, looking at this, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to modify this somehow so it doesn't end infinitely. So what we're going to do is type a break statement, and this literally breaks you out of the loop and whatever iterative statement you're in. And did I save that? Yep. And so I'm going to compile it, compile, execute 5, and now it just does that one time. And so now what we want to do is let's count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so what we're going to do now is, while my first var is less than or equal to 5, let's, instead of breaking, we're going to just say my first var is going to be assigned as itself, but minus 1. So we're going to decrement it down. So the first time that it goes in here, it's going to be 5. And it's going to output we entered 5. And then it's going to decrement this. It's going to go here. So now the value of my first var is going to be 4. And 4 is less than or equal to 5, which still equates to true. And it will continue like that. Now this is still going to be an infinite loop, because just decrementing from 5, you know, that this is still going to be true, and the negative numbers, all that jazz is still going to be in there. So now what we're going to have to do too is let's go ahead and add another condition, and I'm making this overly complicated to show you operations, and we're going to add another condition, and my first var is greater than or equal to 0. So now what I'm saying is, if the number we entered is between 5 and 0, then do this, and we're going to decrement it. And so this should output, if we enter 5, it should output it 5 times, I believe. And let's go ahead and compile, and then execute, and it says we entered 5. It actually does it 6 times. So why is that? Well, that's because I did the inclusive greater than or equal to, so it's including 0. This is including 5. So technically that's actually 6 numbers. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 numbers. So that's why it entered 6 times. So we'll just say it has to be greater than 0, and then it will do it 5 times. So that's a while loop. Now there's also something called a do while loop, and it looks like that. And what this does is it executes code at least once is the difference, and then it'll check the condition, whereas the while loop will just immediately check the condition. If the condition is not true, when it does its first iteration, it doesn't even enter any of the loop's code. This will enter the loop's code at least once. So what we're going to do is we'll just do this here, just for speed and whatever, and we'll copy our expression here, and we'll put it, our condition, we'll put that there. And so now it's going to decrement this here into 0, and so I'm going to comment this out just so it doesn't interfere with our other loop here. And now I'm going to do this. It's going to do this at least once and then decrement it too. So I'm going to save this file, which it is, and then I'm going to compile it, execute it, enter 5, and you can see it did it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it did it 5 times. Same thing. Only difference with this loop is that it does the stuff that you want to have happen at least once before checking condition. So that can be useful in certain situations, and it just takes experience and particular examples to show you exactly where those come into play. The third type of loop I want to show you, and it's personally my favorite type of loop for almost everything, is called a for loop. So the for loop is very nice because I have multiple cursors going here. What's going on? The for loop is cool because if you have some list you have to go over or anything like that, you can actually do 3 types of statements in one line using a for loop. So I actually have a pretty good example on c++.com that I found, and I wanted to go over that. So there's the while, do while, and the for loop. And so what this is doing here, you can see there's the main function, and it does a assignment operator for a variable. Then it does a comparison to see should I keep going in this loop. Then it either can decrement or increment the variable. So looking at this, it's assigning n as 10. So now it's going to output 10 with a comma, and it's going to say is 10 greater than 0? That equates to true, so it keeps going. It decrements n, so now n is equal to 9, and then keeps going. So then it outputs 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then at the end of the loop 1 gets decremented, and so now n would be 0. Is 0 greater than 0? No, 0 is equal to 0, so it doesn't print out 0. And so then the loop is done. This equates to false, and so it's done doing the loop. And then it does this, and then it prints out that. And that's how you can look at that. And then this has a nice edit and run thing going on here. C++ shell. So you can run it in there, and ta-da! So I will include this page in my thing. I think I did in multiple others too. So that's kind of what that's doing, and I could just copy that and paste it in here, and then you can see it working on my screen. And there we go. Alright, cool. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to compile it, and I'm just doing this. There are easier ways to compile than just doing all this stuff, because there's like shortcuts and stuff. But I'm just showing you this so you get used to using the terminal. And so I'm going to enter 5, it does that, and then it says the same thing as the online terminal says. So there you go. So thank you for watching, and hope you learned something. Let me know if this is helpful.